why you couldn't outrun a caveman. Imagine standing barefoot on cold, uneven ground. Your lungs burn as you sprint, every breath scraping like sandpaper against your throat. Behind you, the pounding of feet, raw and relentless. The sound is primal, terrifying, and it's getting closer. You look back, expecting an animal, but it's not a lion. It's not a wolf. It's another human, a caveman. And here's the truth no one tells you. You wouldn't stand a chance. Not in speed. Not in stamina. Not in survival. Because the gap between modern humans and our prehistoric ancestors, isn't just about technology. It's about raw, untamed biology. And in a real chase for your life, you'd be the prey. Born to run, the caveman's engine pictured this. The sun has barely broken the horizon, but the air already tastes of dust and heat. Your bare feet sink into the earth's crust with each step. You're not running on a polished track. There's no cushioned sole beneath you, no sports drink waiting at the halfway mark. Every stride is a conversation between your body and the ground. One mistake, and the earth will answer with pain. For a caveman, running wasn't a sport. It was the first and last line between life and death. Our prehistoric ancestors were sculpted by a daily trial of movement: chase, evade, endure. Their training program was simple: survive the next sunrise. Every single day demanded the kind of physical output that would send a modern person into the hospital after a week. You see, the human body was engineered for endurance long before the concept of engineering existed. Cavemen carried an evolutionary gift, a combination of anatomical quirks and physiological features that made them unmatched in their environment. The Achilles tendon, for example, wasn't just a tendon, it was a built-in spring, storing and releasing energy with every step. Their long legs, narrow hips, and strong glutes weren't shaped by aesthetics, but by the cold mathematics of survival. Longer strides meant covering more ground with less effort. Stronger muscles meant sustaining that motion for hours. Then there was the chest. Modern humans spend most of their time sitting, shoulders rolled forward, lungs unused to their full capacity. Cavemen didn't have that luxury. Their rib cages expanded like bellows, each breath drawing in enough oxygen to feed a furnace of muscle fibers working at their limit. Their hearts, trained by relentless activity, could pump for hours without the body slowing down. And here's the thing most people didn't realize. It wasn't just about speed. Cavemen weren't sprinters, they were predators of patience. While a zebra might outrun them for a minute, it couldn't keep that pace for hours. The caveman could. He would start at a steady pace, each footfall calculated, each breath measured. He would keep that rhythm until the prey's muscles burned. Its breathing became ragged, and exhaustion slowed it to a crawl. It's called persistence hunting, and it's one of the most brutal forms of pursuit ever invented by nature. And it works because the caveman's engine wasn't tuned for a quick burst. It was designed to run on and on, fueled by a body that treated movement as a baseline state of existence. Now compare that to you, sitting in a climate-controlled room, your muscles underfed by disuse, your lungs accustomed to shallow sips of air. The brutal truth? Your body has the blueprint for this same endurance, but comfort has turned it into a dusty relic. In the prehistoric world, you didn't get to choose between running and resting. You ran, or you were gone. If you were dropped into the Stone Age, the first shock wouldn't be the predators, the weather, or the lack of Wi-Fi. It would be how relentless life felt. There was no such thing as a day off. Even on days when no hunt took place, there was gathering, water fetching, shelter fixing, all of it demanding physical movement from sunrise to sunset. This constant low-level activity was the secret fuel for a caveman's running power. It kept their muscles engaged, their tendons strong, their joints accustomed to impact. Compare that to the average modern person, whose most repetitive daily movement might be typing on a keyboard or tapping a phone screen. The difference in baseline fitness is staggering. Now, here is something remarkable about the caveman's engine. It wasn't just physical, it was mental. Running for hours after prey in the scorching sun wasn't comfortable. Every fiber of their body would ache. Their mouths would dry out, their vision would blur from heat waves rising off the ground. And yet, they kept going. Why? Because they understood something modern comfort has erased. Fatigue doesn't mean you redone. It means you in the middle. When scientists have studied persistence hunters among the few remaining traditional societies today, like the Sand people of the Kalahari, they've found a unique relationship with discomfort. These hunters don't panic when their legs grow heavy. They don't quit when their breathing gets ragged. They treat exhaustion as just another stage of the hunt. They expect it. And because they expect it, they're not broken by it. There's another biological trick they mastered: thermoregulation. Humans, unlike most four-legged prey, can sweat across their entire bodies. That means cavemen could shed heat while running, whereas animals like antelope or wildebeest would eventually overheat and slow down. The caveman's body was a radiator wrapped in muscle, able to keep its core cool enough to keep moving, long after other creatures had to stop. But perhaps the most humbling truth is this: the caveman's cardio was not optional. When you're tracking an animal for 6 hours, it's not a workout. It's a direct transaction between effort and survival. Fail to keep pace, and you don't eat. Slow down too much, and you become the hunted. There's no treadmill safety clip to stop you when it gets too hard. So while modern humans might think of running as an event, a marathon, a fitness challenge, a New Year's resolution, for our ancestors, running was simply life unfolding at its natural pace. Their bodies were tuned for it, the way yours is tuned for scrolling. The only difference is use. And the sobering reality is this: every step you take in comfort today is a step further from the raw, unbreakable engine that kept our ancestors alive. Think about your morning routine. You wake up, shuffle to the kitchen, maybe grab coffee, maybe sit in your car for the commute. Most of your day unfolds in a chair. Now imagine instead that the very first thing you do upon waking is pick up the trail of something that was here hours before. A faint scuff in the dirt, a broken blade of grass, a drop of blood still drying in the morning sun. That's your alarm clock. Not a sound, a sign. For the caveman, each run began with tracking. It wasn't a head-down sprint from the start. It was observation, patience, and awareness blending into movement. Every shift in the wind could carry the scent of prey. Every change in the ground's texture could mean you were closer, or that you'd been fooled. This heightened sensory state made the act of running more than physical exertion. It was a hunt with the mind as much as the body, and when the run truly began, it wasn't about raw speed. Cavemen didn't dash recklessly after an antelope or gazelle. They knew the animal would outpace them early. Instead, they kept a steady, unrelenting pace. The kind of pace that modern runners call cruise speed. But here it was paired with a hunter's eyes and a predator's patience. Here, that's where the difference between you and a caveman becomes almost painful to admit. He knew his own limits down to the breath. Every stride was measured so he could run for hours without burning out. He didn't waste movement. He didn't run in panic or in sudden bursts that drained his energy. He flowed forward like water wearing down stone. Eventually, this steady pace would do what the initial sprint could not: break the prey's body down. Heat exhaustion, lactic acid buildup, dehydration, these would slow even the fastest animals, until, finally, they stumbled. And when that moment came, the hunter was there, still steady, still breathing, still capable of one last push to close the distance. If you were to step into that same chase today, the roles would reverse fast. Your early energy would vanish in minutes. Your lungs, unused to sustained effort, would burn until you were gasping. Your legs, accustomed to flat sidewalks and gym floors, would falter on uneven ground. And the caveman, still pacing behind you, would watch without hurry as the gap closed. This wasn't magic. It wasn't superhuman. It was the inevitable result of a life that demanded constant readiness, a body built and rebuilt every day through necessity. The truth is, you and I have the same genetic wiring as those runners from thousands of years ago. But while theirs was a sharpened blade, ours is a dull relic hanging on the wall. And if you ever found yourself in that ancient chase, you'd remember, in the worst way possible, just how far we've fallen from what we were built to be. The terrain test. Nature, as the ultimate gym step outside your front door right now. What do you see? Pavement, flat sidewalks, a neatly trimmed lawn. The ground beneath your feet is predictable, forgiving, and tame. Now, erase all of it from your mind. Replace it with jagged rock, loose sand, tangled roots, sudden drops, and thorn-covered shrubs that don't care about your skin. That was the caveman's gym. There were no safe routes. Every path was a potential trap, and every step had to be taken with awareness. The terrain dictated how you moved, sometimes slow and crouched, sometimes leaping from one dry patch to another. And unlike a modern runner who can stop mid-jog to sip water, a prehistoric hunter often had to keep moving or lose the trail entirely. The earth itself became the ultimate trainer. A savanna forced you into long, exhausting stretches under an open sun, where there was no shade for miles. A forest tested your agility, dodging tree trunks and leaping over fallen logs. Rocky hills demanded bursts of explosive strength to climb, then control and balance to descend without snapping an ankle. The caveman's body adapted to all of it because it had no choice. Every hunt, every journey to gather food or water, was an obstacle course designed by nature to break the weak and sharpen the strong. The uneven ground constantly trained his core, ankles, and stabilizing muscles, the very ones that atrophy in modern humans who rarely leave level surfaces. And here's something you might not expect. Terrain didn't just shape the body, it shaped strategy. In open plains, a hunter could be seen from far away, so the pursuit had to be long and exhausting for the prey. In dense forest, the chase was about silent bursts, moving quickly but without sound, letting the environment hide you until the final moment. Every landscape came with its own unspoken rules, and ignoring them could mean starving, or being ambushed. When scientists study the bone density and joint wear of prehistoric skeletons, they see the proof of this life. Ankles and knees were reinforced from years of impact on varied ground. Backs and shoulders carried the load of tools, weapons, and food over long distances. These weren't specialized athletes training for one type of race. They were all-terrain survival machines, ready for any surface, any slope, any hazard. Now think about it. When was the last time you had to adjust your stride for survival? When was the last time you had to leap over something sharp, duck under something heavy, or grip a rock so you didn't fall to your death? For the caveman, those movements weren't workouts. They were simply Tuesday morning. The land was a ruthless teacher, and those who failed its lessons didn't live long enough to pass their genes on. Imagine a hunt that takes you from one environment into another, a chase beginning on sun-baked grasslands, spilling into the shade of a forest, and ending at the base of a jagged hillside. That's not a rare scenario for a caveman. It's a normal day, and each transition demands instant adaptation. On the open savanna, there's nowhere to hide. The air shimmers with heat, and the ground radiates it back into your legs. This is where stamina rules. The hunter must keep a steady pace, eyes locked on the faint movement of prey in the distance, mind calculating where the animal will slow. Every step is an investment toward wearing the prey down. But once the chase spills into the forest, everything changes. Now the hunter is threading through shadow and silence, weaving between trees, ducking low under branches. The footwork shifts from long, rolling strides to quick, precise steps, the kind that allow you to shift direction in an instant without losing balance. The sounds of the forest, birds, insects, the rustle of leaves, must be read like a language. A sudden hush might mean the prey is close, frozen in place, and if the path rises toward rocky slopes, the hunter enters the most punishing phase of the pursuit. Uphill runs burn the calves and lungs like fire, but slowing down too much risks losing the prey entirely. Descending is worse. Every step on loose stones could mean a slip, a twisted ankle, or worse. Here, balance is survival. Cavemen learned to control their bodies with micro-adjustments. The angle of a foot, the shift of a hip, the timing of a step. These constant changes in terrain meant the caveman never developed just one kind of strength. Instead, his muscles, joints, and reflexes became adaptable, ready for anything. Contrast this with modern fitness routines, flat treadmills, predictable gym floors, climate-controlled air. Our bodies get good at exactly what we repeat. And for most of us, that's moving in safe, straight lines. And then there's the psychological aspect. Navigating wild terrain required focus you can't fake. Every step could hide a venomous snake. Every shadow might conceal a predator waiting for you. Cavemen lived in a constant state of readiness, their senses sharpened by the knowledge that the landscape was both provider and executioner. The result was a body and mind system that treated every environment as a workout and every movement as a calculation. They didn't need training days because the training never stopped. The terrain was always teaching, always testing. For a modern human dropped into that world, the first lesson would be brutal. The ground you take for granted could be your greatest enemy, and your only hope. If the land was the caveman's gym, it was also his battlefield. Every slope, every stretch of ground, could be used to his advantage, or turn against him in a heartbeat. The difference was in knowing the terrain intimately, not just as scenery, but as a living, changing force. A skilled hunter could read the ground like a map. He knew where soft soil might slow an animal's escape, where a narrow ravine could funnel prey into a trap, where loose gravel could trip a rival in pursuit. This knowledge was written anywhere. It was carved into memory through years of living and moving on that land. A single misplaced step could mean losing not only the hunt but your life. The terrain also acted as a filter for survival of the fittest. The clumsy, the inattentive, the slow learners. They didn't last. The land had no pity, no margin for error. But for those who adapted, the reward was dominance. A hunter who mastered his environment became more than a man with a spear. He became part of the land itself, moving through it as naturally as wind through the grass. Here's what's easy to overlook. Terrain mastery wasn't just about legs and lungs. It was about problem solving under pressure. Suppose the prey took a sudden turn into a marshy wetland. You couldn't just barrel in blindly. Each step might sink you knee-deep in muck, draining energy and speed. So the hunter would skirt around, predicting where the animal would exit, ready to cut it off. These decisions had to happen in seconds, while the heart was pounding and breath was short. Modern humans rarely experience this kind of decision-making under physical strain. We solve problems from a chair, with a phone in our hand. Cavemen solved them at a dead run, with sweat in their eyes and their lives hanging in the balance. And here's the harsh reality. Even if you trained in the gym for months, building strength and endurance, you wouldn't automatically be ready for the terrain test. The ground of the ancient world punished repetition and rewarded adaptability. It wanted to see if you could think, adjust, and endure, all at once. For a caveman, passing the terrain's test didn't earn you a medal or a personal best time. It earned you dinner. Failing it didn't mean a bad workout. It meant hunger, or worse, becoming part of another predator's meal. The terrain was merciless, but it was fair in its own brutal way. It gave exactly what you earned, nothing more. And for thousands of years, it shaped the human body and mind into something that today's world has nearly forgotten. The hunt that never quit the chase doesn't start with speed. It starts with patience. A persistence hunt, the kind our ancestors perfected, could last hours, sometimes the better part of a day. And from the first step to the last, the hunter's focus never wavered. This was not the quick explosion of energy you see in predators like lions or cheetahs. This was the slow tightening of a noose. Steady, inevitable, and merciless. Picture it. A hunter spots his prey. maybe an antelope grazing in the distance. He doesn't rush forward. Instead, he begins a steady jog, closing the gap slowly, always keeping the animal in sight. At first, the prey bolts, using its natural speed to create a wide distance. The hunter doesn't panic. He knows the animal will slow. He's counting on it. Here's where the caveman's advantage becomes deadly. While the animal is forced to stop and pant to cool itself, the human hunter keeps moving. Thanks to sweat glands covering his entire body, he can shed heat while still running. The prey can't. It has to trade speed for recovery, and every recovery buys the hunter more ground. The hunt turns into a cycle. The animal sprints, the hunter jogs, the animal rests, the hunter gains. Over and over, the gap narrows. There's no dramatic pounce, no sudden kill, just relentless pressure until the prey's muscles lock with exhaustion, its legs tremble, and it stumbles. What makes this even more brutal is that the hunter must track and chase at the same time. The prey may vanish into brush, change direction, or merge into a herd to hide. The hunter's eyes scan for the tiniest clues: a broken twig, a disturbed patch of earth, a shift in bird calls. He reads these signs in motion, adjusting his course without breaking rhythm. In persistence hunting, stopping too long means failure. The prey's trail cools quickly, both in scent and in tracks. Every second wasted gives the animal a chance to recover and escape for good. This is why the hunt is as much mental endurance as physical. You must fight not just muscle fatigue, but the creeping doubt that you will ever catch the thing you re-chasing. For the modern human, even imagining this is exhausting. We think of long distance as a few kilometers on a weekend run, maybe with earbuds in and a bottle of water strapped to our waist. The caveman had no music, no hydration pack, only the pounding of his heartbeat and the sound of prey ahead, fading and returning like a taunt. By the time the animal finally collapses, the hunter isn't sprinting in for glory. He's walking in, steady and calm, because this wasn't about adrenaline, it was about inevitability, and that's the lesson most of us have forgotten. In the ancient world, victory didn't go to the fastest. It went to the one who simply refused to stop. By the time the sun is high, the air feels like it's pressing against your skin. Heat waves blur the horizon, and each breath pulls in air that feels heavier than it should. This is when the persistence hunt starts to bite. The easy part is over. For the prey, this is a nightmare. Most four-legged animals are designed for bursts, quick getaways, sharp turns, explosive sprints, but their bodies can't dump heat the way ours can. When the temperature rises, every sprint raises their core temperature dangerously high. They can't sweat over their whole bodies like we can. Instead, they rely on panting to cool down, and panting can't happen while running full speed. The hunter knows this. That's why he keeps the pressure steady. Not fast enough to scare the prey into a desperate dash too soon, but fast enough to keep it from ever feeling safe. This constant harassment forces the animal into a cycle of panic, sprint, and recovery, a cycle that is slowly killing it from the inside. But the human body is also under assault. The hunter's calves ache from hours of pounding. His shoulders burn from carrying weapons and gear. His skin bakes in the open sun, and his lips crack from dehydration. This is the point where willpower becomes the real weapon. Most modern people would stop, but a persistence hunter doesn't think in terms of comfort. He thinks in terms of the finish. Tracking at this stage becomes harder. The prey's movements grow erratic, darting through shaded patches, cutting across harder ground to hide its trail. Sometimes it doubles back entirely, forcing the hunter to quickly realize the trick or lose precious minutes. In these moments, the hunter's brain is working as hard as his legs. He's recalling every dip and rise in the land, every waterhole, every path the animal might take. This is the part of the hunt where modern humans would fail, even if they were physically fit enough to keep up. It's one thing to run, it's another to make constant split-second decisions under extreme physical stress. And in the Stone Age, there was no pause button. The hunt continued until it ended, one way or another. Eventually, the prey's signs of exhaustion become visible even from a distance. Its head droops between bursts. Its gait stiffens. It begins to stumble on terrain it would normally navigate with ease. These are the signals that the end is close. The hunter feels them like a second heartbeat, not relief yet, but confirmation that his strategy is working. This was the art of the hunt that never quit. It wasn't about overpowering the prey in a sudden clash. It was about slowly unraveling it, one step at a time, until it no longer had the will or the strength to keep going. By now, the chase has stretched into hours. The prey is running on instinct alone, not strategy, not awareness, just a blind urge to keep moving. Its muscles are flooded with lactic acid, its chest heaves in desperate gulps, and its legs begin to betray it. Every step is clumsy now. The hunter's pace remains steady. His breathing is deep but controlled, his stride economical, his eyes locked on the animal ahead. This is the final act, the point where patience turns into inevitability. The prey no longer dashes away in bursts. Instead, it staggers forward, as if every step might be the last. In the ancient world, this was the moment of silent triumph. There was no cheering, no victory dance. The hunter simply closed the gap, weapon in hand, and ended the chase with precision. The kill wasn't about sport, it was survival. Every calorie spent in the pursuit needed to be repaid with the meat, the hide, the bones of the animal. Nothing was wasted. But here's the part most modern humans can comprehend. The hunt wasn't just physical labor. It was a sacred exchange. The hunter had earned the right to take life by proving he could endure, adapt, and outlast. Among many early peoples, there was respect for the animal, gratitude for its role in sustaining the tribe. The chase wasn't cruelty. It was a negotiation with nature, and only the most capable could close the deal. When anthropologists observe the few remaining persistence hunters today, they see something remarkable after the kill. The hunters are tired, yes, but not broken. They could go further if they had to. That's because the body, when trained by a lifetime of necessity, develops a different relationship with exhaustion. For the modern human, fatigue often signals the end. For the hunter, it simply marks the point where the mind takes over completely. This is why, if you were matched against a caveman in such a hunt, you'd be finished long before the prey was. Not because you're weak in absolute terms, but because you've never had to connect your survival to your endurance. You've never had to keep going when every signal from your body screamed for you to stop. Not for a race medal, not for a personal record, but because stopping meant death. When the hunt ends, the tribe gathers. The meat is divided, the fire is lit, and the story of the chase is told. And the hunter? He sleeps knowing that tomorrow may demand the same trial all over again. That's why persistence hunting was more than just a skill. It was a way of existing, a way that modern comfort has erased almost completely. Fire. The second weapon. If endurance was humanity's first great weapon, then fire was the second. And unlike speed or strength, it wasn't something the body was born with. It had to be stolen, coaxed, and mastered. Picture the world before fire. Nights were a living darkness, not the soft glow of street lamps or phone screens. The dark was thick, absolute, and full of eyes. Predators owned the night, and humans were nothing but fragile, slow-moving prey once the sun dipped below the horizon. But then came the spark. Maybe it was lightning striking dry grass. Maybe it was embers left smoldering from a volcanic vent. However it began, the first time our ancestors saw fire, it wasn't warmth they saw, it was power. The problem? Fire wasn't theirs yet. It could not be conjured at will. It had to be carried, guarded, and fed like a living thing. If the flame died, the protection died with it. Entire hunting parties would risk their lives to travel into dangerous territory just to bring back a burning branch. Fire was that precious. This was the turning point. Because with fire, humans no longer hid from the night. They claimed it. The circle of light around the flames became a boundary no predator dared cross. Cooking transformed food, releasing more energy for the brain and body, turning the human mind into something sharper, hungrier, more ambitious. But here, easy to forget. Fire was not just a tool, it was a responsibility. It had to be watched constantly. Embers had to be carried from one camp to the next, wrapped in dry moss, or carried inside hollowed-out bones to keep the spark alive during travel. In the wild, a lapse of attention meant starting from nothing, with no guarantee you'd succeed. The modern world treats fire as a given. You flick a switch, press a button, or strike a match. But for tens of thousands of years, keeping fire alive was as vital as keeping blood in your veins. To our prehistoric ancestors, fire was proof of dominance, a declaration that they could bend nature to their will. It was also a symbol of connection. Tribes that could not make fire themselves often had to trade or beg from those who could, creating alliances, debts, and rivalries. Fire was currency, status, and survival in one. That's why, in the ancient world, losing fire wasn't just an inconvenience, it was a crisis. And gaining it wasn't just luck, it was victory. Fire didn't just push back the night, it pushed back time itself. Before fire, the day ended when the sun disappeared. After fire, humans extended the day into the darkness, claiming hours that no other creature could use. Around the flames, stories were told, plans were made, tools were repaired, and bonds were strengthened. Fire didn't just protect life, it shaped culture. But to truly grasp its importance, you have to imagine the risks taken to obtain it. Fire wasn't always waiting in a safe place. Sometimes it meant venturing into the aftermath of a lightning storm, where trees still smoldered and the air reeked of ozone. Sometimes it meant creeping dangerously close to lava flows or natural gas vents. And sometimes it meant taking it from another tribe, which could mean war. One spark could change everything. That's why the keeper of the fire, often the tribe's most trusted elder or most reliable hunter, held a role of sacred importance. If they failed, the tribe suffered. If they succeeded, the tribe thrived. This wasn't superstition, it was survival strategy. And here's the hidden truth. Fire didn't just keep humans safe from predators. It made humans predators. With fire-hardened spears, they could hunt bigger game. With torches, they could drive animals into traps or over cliffs. With cooking, they could consume foods that were once inedible or dangerous. Fire didn't just give them light, it gave them dominance. The predators of the ancient world didn't fear humans because of their muscles or teeth. They feared the flicker of orange in the dark. Fire was a boundary line in the wild. On one side, the endless, indifferent night, on the other, the small circle of light where humans ruled. But there was a cost. Fire demanded fuel. It demanded vigilance. A tribe could only stay in one place as long as they had wood, dried grass, or dung to burn. Once the fuel ran low, the tribe moved on, carrying glowing embers and carved horns or stone bowls. This constant movement created a strange truth about human evolution. Fire made us stronger, but it also made us wanderers. It tied our survival to our ability to adapt, to find resources in any environment. Forests, savannas, mountains, even frozen tundras. And with every step, the fire came along. A little piece of the sun, stolen from nature, carried through the ages. For early humans, fire wasn't just heat, safety, or a hunting tool. It became the foundation of identity. Around the flames, they didn't just survive, they remembered. The glow of the fire was the first stage where human history, myth, and imagination were born. Imagine a freezing night 200,000 years ago. The wind howls through the grasslands, and the darkness beyond the fire is alive with movement. The tribe huddles close, the warmth seeping into tired muscles. Then someone, maybe the oldest among them, maybe the boldest, begins to speak. They tell of the great hunt, of spirits in the mountains, of ancestors who once walked with the gods. In that moment, fire becomes more than survival. It becomes story. And story is power. Stories carried lessons, which plants heal and which kill. How to track a wounded animal, why the stars shift across the sky. They carried warnings, shaping the tribe's decisions for generations. A hunter who listened at the fire was armed with the knowledge of 100 hunts they had never been part of. Fire also became a mirror for human ambition. It could grow from a single spark into an unstoppable force. Just as a single idea could grow into something that changed the tribe forever. Humans began to see themselves in fire. Unpredictable, dangerous, yet full of potential. But the most profound change was invisible. Fire began altering the human body itself. Cooking food broke down tough fibers, releasing more calories with less chewing. This freed time, reduced the strain on jaw muscles, and over thousands of generations, allowed for smaller jaws and bigger brains. Fire didn't just warm the body, it rewired evolution. Yet, for all its benefits, fire carried a shadow. It could betray its masters. One stray ember could set the grasslands ablaze, destroying hunting grounds and forcing tribes to flee. A fire stolen by an enemy could be turned against its original keepers. Fire gave life, but it could just as easily take it away. And that duality, creation and destruction, taught humans one of their first great philosophical truths. Every tool is a test of the one who wields it. Fire was the earliest proof. Those who respected it thrived. Those who underestimated it vanished into history. So the fire burned on, carried from camp to camp, year after year, across continents. It became the silent witness to our rise, flickering in caves, reflecting in the eyes of hunters, sparking against stone in the cold dawn. It was never just a flame, it was a promise. A promise that even in a world where nature ruled with ice and tooth and claw, there would always be one place where humans could gather, defy the dark, and call it home. Stone and strategy. The third weapon before fire, humans had muscle. But muscle alone had limits. A human could not match the claws of a lion, the speed of a gazelle, or the crushing jaws of a hyena. Fire gave us control over the night, but the day still belonged to predators faster, stronger, and better armed than we were. The solution came from the earth itself. Long before the first sharpened blade was struck, there were stones, scattered across riverbeds, hidden in cliffs, buried beneath dust. To most creatures, they were nothing, but to human eyes, they became possibility. Somewhere, tens of thousands of years ago, a pair of hands picked up a rock, not to throw it, but to shape it. A chip was struck off, then another. Edges became sharper. A crude point emerged. That moment, repeated in countless places by countless hands, marked the birth of the third weapon. Tools. The first were simple hand axes, heavy and rough, perfect for smashing bone or cutting meat. Later came lighter, sharper blades that could skin an animal in minutes, or carve wood into spear shafts. Humans learned to bind stone points to sticks, turning short reach into lethal range. A spear meant you didn't have to be as close as the lion. You could strike first. But the real revolution wasn't just the tools themselves. It was the thinking behind them. Every flint knife, every spear, every hammerstone was proof that humans had begun to shape not just materials, but possibilities. Stone tools allowed humans to hunt animals far larger than themselves. Creatures that had once seemed untouchable. Mammoths, giant elk, even rhinos fell to coordinated attacks using weapons born from rock. Each kill was more than food, it was proof of dominance over the wild. With tools, humans began to master another skill that no predator had perfected before: strategy. Lions hunt with instinct, wolves hunt with inherited patterns, but humans hunted with evolving plans. They watched, they adapted, they tested, they changed tactics mid-chase. A group could surround prey, forcing it into an ambush. They could set traps along a migration route. They could wound and track, following the blood trail for days until exhaustion toppled the giant. No other creature had the patience for such a hunt, and like fire, tools changed the human body. The demands of shaping stone and using weapons sculpted stronger hands, more precise grips, and minds better at visualization. You didn't just hit a stone randomly. You had to see the edge before it existed, break it at just the right angle, predict the outcome before the strike. Stone and strategy became inseparable. A sharper edge meant more than faster butchering. It meant survival through the leanest seasons. It meant defending the tribe from predators. It meant carrying power in your hands, even when the fire was far away.
If fire was the great equalizer, strategy was the invisible blade. The one predators never saw coming. A lion knows how to hunt because it has always hunted. It does not invent new tactics when prey changes behavior. But humans? We are problem solvers with skin in the game. When prey became faster, we became more cunning. When predators became bolder, we became more unpredictable. The first hunts with tools were clumsy, dangerous, and costly. A spear might miss. A rock blade might snap but failure was not the end. It was the lesson. Every broken spear taught where to strengthen the shaft. Every dull edge taught how to strike flint in a sharper way. Our survival was forged in trial and error. Soon, humans learned to weaponize patience. Instead of rushing prey, they would watch for days, learning its routes, its drinking spots, the wind patterns that carried human scent. A hunt could stretch across miles, with runners taking turns to keep a herd moving until exhaustion slowed the weakest. This was persistence hunting, a tactic no other predator mastered at our scale. It didn't require speed. It required endurance, planning, and trust between hunters. Then came the feint. A group would reveal itself, spooking the prey into an escape path that was not escape at all, but a carefully set trap where hidden hunters waited. Spears would fly, and the kill would come not from brute force, but from guiding the animal exactly where you wanted it to be. But strategy didn't stop at the hunt. It extended to warfare. When rival tribes fought, victory rarely went to the strongest warriors. It went to the best thinkers. An ambush at a river crossing. A feigned retreat to draw enemies into open ground. A night raid when the rival's fire was low. Humans learned that the battlefield was not just the open plain. It was also the mind of the opponent. Every plan required communication, and that sharpened another tool. Language before the first word was spoken. Humans used hand signs, grunts, and shared memory to coordinate attacks. The need to strategize together became a pressure that shaped our brains just as much as it shaped our tools. And perhaps the most dangerous thing we learned was that strategy could outlast the moment. A tribe could plan not for this hunt, but for the next season. Not for this rival, but for their children's rivals. This was the seed of long-term thinking, a skill that would eventually shape civilizations. In the Stone Age, your weapon was not only in your hand, it was in your head. With stone and strategy, humans crossed a threshold. They were no longer just another animal, surviving in a dangerous world. They were architects of survival itself. Every strike of flint, every ambush, every patient stalk was another step away from prey and another step toward predator. Fire gave us control over fear. Muscle gave us the means to act. But strategy! Strategy gave us direction. The moment those three merged, humans became something the world had never seen before. An apex predator by design, not by birth. Picture it! A group of hunters moves silently at dawn. Each one knows his role. The flankers, the drivers, the hidden spear. The prey does not know it yet, but its fate was sealed the night before. Around the fire, when the hunters mapped every move in the dirt with sticks. This was the birth of intentional inevitability. The kill wasn't luck. It wasn't chance. It was architecture! Even the great predators, the lions, the saber-tooths, the packs of wolves, began to learn to keep their distance. Not because humans were the biggest, but because we were the most unpredictable. One day we might chase them away from their kill. The next, we might turn their own hunting grounds into an arena where they were the hunted. It wasn't just animals that felt this shift. Other human tribes learned that crossing the wrong group could mean the difference between surviving winter or vanishing from memory. Fire allowed night raids. Weapons turned numbers into power. Strategy turned both into certainty. And still, it wasn't enough to dominate. We wanted to improve. We sharpened stones into finer points. We crafted throwing spears that could hit from farther away. We learned to work together in silence, reading each other's movements without a word. The advantage was no longer just survival. It was efficiency. Why risk a fight with a cornered beast when you could exhaust it first? Why throw one spear when you could drive the prey into a gauntlet of them? Why fight an enemy tribe in the open when you could cut off their water source and let time finish the battle for you? This was humanity's true weapon. Time as a tool. Every other predator lived in the moment. We lived in moments yet to come. And here is the truth. The world never stood a chance against a creature that could burn, build, and plan. In the quiet, around the embers, we were already writing the first chapter of a story that would never end. The story of taking control. The forests, the plains, the mountains. They were no longer just our home. They were our chessboard. And from that moment on, humanity stopped reacting to the world. We began shaping it. If you've stayed with me until now, don't just walk away. Pause for a moment. Look in the mirror. Not just to see the face you wear today, but to imagine the faces of those who came before you, hundreds of thousands of years ago. In your eyes, the reflection of a fire still burns. In your heartbeat, the rhythm of those who walked through darkness so you could stand here now. The story of our species isn't finished. Every choice you make, no matter how small, becomes a line in the great book of human history. And so, like the ones who came before, it's your turn to carry the torch forward. If this video made you think differently about humanity, give it a like so others can find it. Subscribe to the channel to keep exploring the untold stories that shaped us. And if something here sparked a thought, an image, or a question of your own, share it in the comments. You never know, your words might inspire the next great story we tell. And remember, history is not meant to gather dust on a shelf. It lives in us every day, every step we take. Together, we can write a chapter worthy of the millions of years it took to create us.